trouble between age 5 and 9. My family took me to 20 different doctors, psychiatrists, pediatricians, pediatric psychiatrists, general practitioners, and they just all threw up their hands and they said, this guy's got a lot of problems. We don't know what they are. We need to put him in. It was actually going to be a hospital. It was a hospital for people who were criminally, they had hurt somebody or killed somebody or something like that. They were going to put me in there because I was very dangerous. I was hurting people when I was 9 years old. And so I'm sitting on my bed, on the foot of the bed on a Friday night. My mom and dad are packing my clothes because on Monday they're going to take me to this hospital, prison hospital, or whatever it was. And I'm saying, well, why am I having these problems? I'm just a kid, okay? And so I thought about it. So the next morning, on Saturday morning, when they're preparing breakfast and so forth, I took my Cheerios and my Wheaties and my oatmeal and everything like that, and I threw it out to the chickens. And I took my bowl to the barn, and I put the alfalfa pellets that were fortified with vitamins and minerals, not just alfalfa pellets, but they were fortified with vitamins and minerals, in my bowl, took it back to the kitchen, put milk in it, and had that for breakfast. Then I had it for breakfast again on Sunday morning. I had it for breakfast again on Monday morning. By 3:30 in the afternoon, on Monday afternoon, I was cured. After 5 years and 20 doctors couldn't figure it out, I figured it out because it was the gluten in the wheat, barley, rye, and oats that I was eating every morning for breakfast. Okay, it was preventing me from absorbing nutrition, and my bad behavior was due to lack of nutrition. And so that was the beginning. And I knew when I was 9 years old that doctors didn't know everything. And so I began to study. And that's why, to make a long story short, I, went to school and I got my degree in agriculture. I was working on my degree in veterinary medicine, and it was Christmas, 1963, a year before I graduated veterinary school. All the professors are gone. I'm there by myself. I'm working my way through school in the pathology department. And this farmer brings me 50 dead sheep, 50 dead lambs. Holy moly. I said, what happened? He says, well, yesterday I'm kind of feeding our lambs. We got 500. And we're going to shear them after Christmas because just a couple of days before Christmas, we're going to shear them all. They're 6 months old. Then after New Year's, we're going to take them to slaughter. He said, well, this morning when I woke up to feed them again, they're all dead. 500 died in one night. What? Okay. Well, that's because there had to be some obvious big problem there. So I said, well, where were they getting their water? Well, we have a pond. Okay. You have other farms adjacent to? He said, yeah, I'm surrounded by farms. I said, well, do they have other animals like sheep and cattle and goats and things? No. They all grow hay and corn and wheat and stuff like that. And what do they use for fertilizer? Nitrate fertilizers. Okay, well, it's contaminated drinking water. They're bringing me some samples of the drinking water for these lambs, and I opened them up, and sure enough, their blood was black. It wasn't dark red, it was black, because the nitrates, okay, had killed their thyroid glands. And when the temperature dropped from 45, 50 degrees, which is not unusual for central Missouri in the wintertime, to 16 that night, they all died of hypothermia because their thyroids were dead, because their thyroids are getting blasted by nitrates for 6 months. And so that's paper got written and published in a veterinary journal. That was my first scientific publication. And it was really, really crazy. I learned that very quickly, how the environment is so important. Well, to make a long story short, did get my veterinary degree, and I was, what should I say, I was working with Marlon Perkins, the old Mutual Mahawal Kingdom show, and he sent me to Africa to work on the white rhino conservation project, and I had a tranquilizer that was 10,000 times stronger than morphine. And we could just use a dart that was the size, a tranquilizer dart the size of a AAA battery instead of a flashlight size. Okay. And I caught 200 to 350 that were left in South Africa, the Umfolozi and Shislui game reserves. caught 200 of them, sent them back to the United States. So no matter what happened, we'd have some in wild animal parks and zoos to keep the species alive and kind of percolating. And to make a long story short, Perkins called me back using my paper that I wrote and got published on the 500 deaths on those lambs. Got a $25 million grant. Okay, it's from NIH, National Institutes of Health, for Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, and Dr. Let's see here, Barry Commoner, the head of the department, and they got me to be the pathologist on the project. Well, my studies started when I was 9 years old, and I figured out what was going on with me. Okay, and my most recent publication, this book came out just a couple of weeks ago, The Wallach Revolution. It's the second edition of this book. The first edition, and Rebecca has been very, very involved through the health coaches. Okay, they had a committee and so forth in the original book, and there's a lot of additions. Huh?
I put it up. I'm doing my job.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so it's one of those things. It's a 75-year track record of discoveries that I've made over the years. Okay, blow your mind. Well, we've helped so many people, average everyday people. We've helped so many famous people, and so many of the famous people said, "Hey, we'd like to do the foreword to the book, do the chapters in the book, and so forth." So this book, The Wallach Revolution, okay, the foreword is done by Pat Boone, tells his story, okay, and the story of Andy Young, where they both had knee problems and so forth. They were both going to get double knee replacements, and they both used my program, like the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack, which I had put together for Theo Ratliff, and rebuilt them so they didn't have to have double knee replacements and other health issues. And then, of course, we also have in there, let's see here.
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover, yeah, Danny Glover, the famous actor and also a comedian, and he had terrible emotional problems, kind of like I had. Okay, going through the same thing, and he was, what should I say? He was going through things where he had these problems, behavioral problems.
He had seizures, Dr. Wallach.
He had seizures and behavioral problems. And so we were able to help him get rid of that. And he has helped so many people over the years. And he wrote kind of like kind of a chapter towards the end of the text. And of course, we have the Theo Ratliff story. We have the Evander Holyfield story. We have many, many other stories in there, how these famous people were able to escape and avoid major surgeries and being on drugs all their life and dying early and everything like that. And so every family needs to get a hold of this book, The Wallach Revolution. It will blow your mind, the information in there, okay? It's something that everybody with a 6th grade reading level can understand. We wrote it that way. And of course, it goes along with you need to put the next one up here, Becca, epigenetics, which is there you go, which is kind of a summary of the article, not the article, but the publication that came out of that study, the 10-year study from NIH. My thesis is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure and sells for $25,000 each, and nobody's going to buy a $25,000 book. And so we came up with a summary of that thesis. It's called Epigenetics, the Death of the Genetic Disease Transmission. And the reason why my thesis is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure is because I proved beyond all doubt there are no genetically transmitted diseases. There are no autoimmune disease where the body's attacking itself. Those are all things that doctors made up because they didn't know things and they didn't want to say, I don't know. So they said, well, your body's attacking itself. Oh, you got 3 people in your family with diabetes. It's a genetic thing. That's all nonsense, okay? These are all nutritional deficiencies. And so, thank you. You can put it down now. And basically what we're going into is a story of over 600 different diseases we know how to prevent and reverse. 600 different diseases. And of course, then you can buy these books that sell new in the box, still wrapped up, never opened, for $25,000. You can go to Siri and ask Siri, if there's any available that are used and beat up and everything. And there are, and you can get them, and they'll, sell for anything from $1,500. They're dog-eared and riding in the margins, and the dog is peed on them and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, they're in better shape. They sell for $3,500. They're in better shape. They sell for $5,000. They're in better shape. They sell for $8,000, depending on how much you want to spend for it. But that's the book, The Diseases of Exotic Animals. It's called The Diseases of Exotic Animals. And I'm so very, very proud of that because, like I say, I'm just a farm kid from Missouri to be able to do that and to have something in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure. And I was looking up the other day how many national treasures are in the Smithsonian Institute. And I haven't really gotten to down to the details yet, but we're going to get there and find out how many are in there and how many of each subject are national treasures and so forth. But I'm just really so blessed that people recognize the value of the information that was generated by that program. 10-year study. And so this is why we are where we are, okay? And we've been doing this now since let's see here. I guess we've been working on this since 1976, when I discovered the first non-human case of cystic fibrosis and showed that it was just a simple nutritional deficiency disease and not a genetic thing, as they had believed. And they fired me from the Yerkes Primate Center in Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, because they said it was not genetic. It was a simple nutritional deficiency disease during early pregnancy. And they fired me. And that's when I went back to school. And I was teaching nutrition at the Naturopathic College in Portland, Oregon, NCNM, National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And I decided to take the courses and get a degree in naturopathic medicine. They gave me some credit for my microbiology and parasitology and anatomy and some of my biochemistry and stuff like that, and nutrition. I was teaching nutrition there. And so it took me 3 years of studying courses instead of 4 to get my degree in naturopathic medicine, which I graduated in 1982. And so we've been healing people by the tens of thousands now every month all over the world. We're in 80 countries. We have 60 warehouses around the world. And, we have wonderful people. And of course, my attorney, Jonathan E. Mord, okay, he and I put the nutrients into the baby formulas. We sued the FDA 8 times in federal court, just on that one subject, 8 times, and got them to put these nutrients into baby formulas. And so we were able to eliminate sudden death syndrome, okay, which was not really a disease where the mothers were laying on the babies, they'd said for years and years and years, but there was a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. We eliminated muscular dystrophy, gave the information to Jerry Lewis, and the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation and Association fired Jerry Lewis and shut down the telethon, even though he had raised $2.6 billion with a B dollars for them. They were freaking out because he said it's a simple nutritional deficiency disease, and Wallach and I, have the answer, and they fired him and shut down the telethon. And so I don't have much respect for that group. And then, of course, we also were able to eliminate the disease. Okay, the original one, of course, was the one that I found out with the Yerkes Primate Center monkeys.
Cystic fibrosis.
Cystic fibrosis, yeah, cystic fibrosis. Okay, the monkeys. Okay, and 5 medical schools agreed that the slides I sent them was cystic fibrosis. That I didn't tell them they were slides from monkeys. I just said, I think this is cystic fibrosis. What do you think? And they said, yeah, these are classic examples. And then when I told them that it was from a monkey. They were all excited. I said, yeah, at least we have, laboratory animals now. And then I got permission to do biopsies on the other monkeys in that colony. They all had cystic fibrosis, all the new babies that year. I think there's 24 of them. And I said, it's not genetic, it's a simple nutritional deficiencies. And that's when they fired me. And so this is a, what should I say, an up and downhill story that goes 75 years. Okay. And so that's why this book is so important for everybody to know the story. This is not a simple, one-time discovery. This is a lifetime of gathering information, just like this one. It's all in your head. 37 different diseases you get when you have osteoporosis of the skull. There's a CD that goes along with it that Rebecca and I did, okay? And so the book and the CD is with Dr. Milan and Rebecca and myself. The top picture here, okay, is a normal skull, 1/4 inch thick. Down here is an osteoporosis skull, 1.5 to 2 inches thick. And there's 37 different diseases you can get. There you go. There's 37 different diseases you can get when you have osteoporosis of the skull. And the doctors will send you to their classmates who became dentists or who are cardiologists, who are ear, nose, and throat doctors. They'll give you hearing aids. And they will send you to orthopedic surgeons to do joint replacement surgeries and all that kind of stuff. But really, it's just osteoporosis of the skull. Okay. And so this is an ongoing, what should I say, landslide of information. Okay. And so we're very, very proud of this. Literally millions of people we've helped since 1976 when this information came out in those front page news stories. Okay, millions of people have been helped with this information. And so we're very, very proud of that. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Rebecca because she has the map for the rest of this program.
I do have the map, but before we move on to that map, Dr. Wallach, I just want to point out that in this book, The Wallach Revolution, yes, it has Pat Boone. Yes, it has Danny Glover, but it also has a dozen other people just like you and I, folks, that have benefited from Dr. Wallach's protocols, his eating recommendations. It's just, you take it and it works. You take the stuff that's preventing digestive out of the picture, you get better absorption. The nutrients that you're putting into your body is able to utilize. And whenever it has things that it needs to create healthier cells, the body as a whole, Dr. Wallach, becomes healthier.
Well, yeah. And of course, digestion starts in the nose. What? Well, that's because you smell food. Okay, the olfactory nerves. You smell food. And so that's when they say, boy, my mouth is watering. I just love that smell of that steak cooking. Okay, that's because it's all kind of attached. And then your eyes, you see, oh, look at those, all that fresh fruit and berries and everything. My mouth is watering. Okay, because your eyes are an extension of your brain. Okay, and so between your nose and your eyes, optic nerve is number 2, cranial nerve. Okay, and then let's see here. Another one that's kind of interesting here, the cranial nerve, number 10. Okay, and we'll get to that in a minute. It actually, cranial nerve number 10, when it gets squeezed, when you have osteoporosis of the skull, it causes extreme pain in the stomach. And doctors think you have things like, it's called gastroparesis, but they think you have an ulcer in there. Let's go back to the subject of the day here, which is our digestive system, which starts again in the nose, in the mouth. And then, of course, you have the taste buds. You have the ability to swallow, which is controlled by your 9th cranial nerve. When it gets squeezed, you have trouble swallowing. Your voice changes. You can't taste food anymore because that's the 9th cranial nerve being squeezed. And then the salivary glands, pumping out saliva and everything, has to do with the 3rd and 4th and 5th cranial nerves. Okay. And it's an amazing thing. And then, of course, you have the esophagus, which carries the food after it's been chewed up by your teeth and your jaws and Your gums all have to be good. Your teeth have to. I apologize for that. And because I'm expecting government calls here, so I do have to kind of keep that open. But at any rate, it's one of those things where the trail through the 12 pairs of cranial nerves and the spinal cord covers the digestive system quite remarkably. Now, your stomach has cells to produce stomach acid. And when doctors say don't take salt because it's going to cause high blood pressure, that's absolutely positively not true. Change doctors when they say stupid stuff like that, okay? If they say don't take salt because you're going to have trouble, okay, with high blood pressure, it causes high blood pressure, that's not true. Salt is required, and God gave you the cells in your stomach to make acid, stomach acid. You require stomach acid to absorb minerals, to digest food, okay? And so you need that salt. Let's see, chloride, sodium chloride, and that's hydrochloric acid. You cannot make stomach acid without salt. And then, of course, depending on what kind of salt you're using, if you're using sea salt or seasoned salt or Himalayan salt, the first conscious thing that people did for digestion and health with salt, you know, they would boil salt water on the coast and they'd take it inland thousands of years ago and sell it. They call it sea salt. And they were seeing that people who had goiters the size of what, cantaloupe, okay, that have huge goiters, yeah, and they'd take the sea salt and in a couple of weeks their goiter would go away. Now, they didn't know what it was in the sea salt that did it, but they did attach the sea salt to the goiter going away. And so that became one of the big selling points for sea salts 3,000, 2,000, 1,500 years ago, because we were able to prevent and get rid of goiter by using sea salt because it had all those trace minerals in there. Okay, which one is it? Which one is it? Well, read the book. Okay, and because I used to tell people what it was, and they'd run to the store and they'd buy something, and they would take it, and I'd call, you know, the family a couple of months later. I said, "Hey, Julie, what's going on with Ray? I haven't heard from you guys in a while." Well, he took what you said. You know, he took that mineral, that one mineral. He was fine for a couple of weeks or so, and then he died. Oh, and so I stopped telling people which one it is. You got to take all 90. And then we have secret sauces which have extra stuff when you have a specific disease to add to the 90. Okay, you don't just take one. Oxygen is very, very good, right? You need oxygen, but oxygen is bad. It caused iron to rust. So put paint on it and then it don't rust. But you need oxygen, okay, your entire life, okay? And so it's one of those things where you have to kind of think about all those details. Then you go down to the next level, your duodenum, which is the first part of your small intestine. And into the duodenum, your liver is pumping in bile, which is required to absorb essential fatty acids, okay, which prevent blood clots and strokes and stuff like that. Very important. Also, it helps you absorb fat-soluble nutrients like vitamin A, fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, that kind of stuff. Okay, and then you also need to know about the pancreas. The pancreas produces enzymes to help you digest food, break down proteins into amino acids and carbohydrates into individual carbohydrates or sugars and that kind of stuff. But also the pancreas produces insulin to help you with blood sugar issues. So it needs all these nutrients. And then your jejunum, which is the lengthy part of the small intestine, okay? It has all these villi in there, okay? It makes your intestines look like a shag rug, all that surface area. Well, if you're eating gluten, wheat, butter, and oats, those villi go away, and now instead of looking like a shag rug, your intestines look like, a plastic tube.
I'm going to show that picture, Dr. Wallach.
Okay, yes, that's a very, very dynamic set of pictures. And I learned that when I was 9 years old. And it's one of those things where you have to maximize absorption down that trail of the jejunum. And this is something that everybody has to be aware of. We teach this in school. Okay, there you go. Normal small intestine, normal jejunum, which includes the duodenum all the way down to where it connects with your colon, where your appendix is. And you can see all those little finger-like projections. Okay, you see all those finger-like projections there on the left-hand picture. And then here's where somebody's been on gluten, wheat, bran, oats, and buckwheat for maybe a couple of months or a year or so. You can see 2/3 of those villi are gone, okay? And the ones that are there are full of a lot of connective tissue and very hard to absorb things through that. And then the picture on the right, all the villi are gone. And now when you look at it, when you just open up the intestine, you're looking at it, it looks like a plastic tube because all the villi are gone. It doesn't look like a shag rug anymore. It's all scar tissue, connective tissue, and you cannot absorb much in the way of nutrients through that. Okay, and so this is why you have to stay away from wheat, brown, rye, oats, and buckwheat. Well, my grandmother, ate oatmeal for breakfast her whole life. Well, yeah, good. How long did she live? Well, she lived into her 80s. Okay, have you ever heard of Jimmy Carter, one of our past presidents? He's 98 years old now, and he's been eating cornmeal and grits for breakfast every morning instead of Wheaties, instead of oatmeal. He's 98. Why is that? Because he can absorb nutrition, because his intestines are still good, because he's not been eating wheat, bran, and oats. He's been eating corn. Okay. And then he also eats fruit and vegetables and seafood. Okay. And then he does eat steak and vegetables and fruit and corn. He eats corn all 3 of his meals. Okay. And he made homemade wine. Okay. And he's 98 years old. Now, the medical doctors wanted to put him in hospice a couple of months ago because he's 98 years old. Well, let's put you in hospice so we can kind of monitor you and keep you going. He says, no, thank you. I'll just stay home and continue doing what I'm doing. It was a very smart move on his part, because they would have changed his diet. They would have really messed him up badly if he had gone into hospital. He didn't have any diseases, okay? He's still playing golf and all that kind of stuff. So now,
he overcame a few diseases, though, Dr. Wallach, in his life. He was hit hard with some stuff. So, but he was doing something right that allowed his body to be able to keep going and not give up. And that comes down to nutrition, because we're not chemical deficient.
And absorption.
Back to the digestion.
Yep, digestion and the gastrointestinal tract, which includes digestion and absorption. Digestion and absorption. I'll throw another one in there: consumption of the right things, digestion and absorption. Okay, and the only thing that should be coming out the back end is waste material that has very little in it of any value. Now, in the old days, we used fertilizer from animals as their manure. We use that as fertilizer in our gardens and so forth, along with the wood ashes and so forth. But when we went away from wood ashes, and of course, the bottomland went away when they came out with all the dams for hydroelectric, and that contributed to our problems with digestion and absorption, because we weren't able to absorb anything anymore because we didn't have the nutrition, and we weren't getting the nutrients because we dammed up the rivers and the streams and everything, and they weren't getting into the soil anymore from flooding because we shut off the flooding when we made, and everybody was happy about no more floods, but they didn't realize that silt that was renewing the minerals into the farm soils that was taken up by the plants from the previous year. It was being replaced every year. And that's why farmland called bottomland was so expensive, because it was being refertilized by nature every year. Okay, so all that changed. We paid a price. We paid a terrible price, okay, in health, misery, finances, and loss of and lack of longevity. Well, now once you know all the bits and pieces, you take your supplement with the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. We have what we call the secret sauces for over 600 different diseases. So let's say you have diabetes. So you take your Healthy Brain and Heart Pack and you take the Healthy Blood Sugar Pack. Usually within weeks, you don't have type 2 diabetes anymore. Now, type 1 diabetes is a birth defect, not a genetic birth defect, but mama was missing stuff when the parts of the pancreas in the embryo were being formed that actually made the insulin, okay? And so the baby was born with maybe 2 of those cells in the islets of Langerhans instead of 200. And that's why there's type 1 diabetes when babies are born. I love it when doctors say, I get people call me all the time, and you probably have too, Becca, where they say, oh, I was just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. My doctor said I have type 1 diabetes because the oral medicine for my diabetes didn't work. No, you didn't have diabetes for 65 years. Why suddenly you have type 1 diabetes? No, somebody's lying to you. Okay, the reason why you're not able to benefit from the oral medication, okay, is why? Oh, what do you eat for breakfast every morning? Oh, I've been eating oatmeal my whole life. Well, that's why, because your intestines are dead. Your villi are gone. Your intestines are like a plastic tube, and your medication that the doctor gave you, or the oral medication, is coming out the other end because you couldn't absorb it. You don't have type 1 diabetes. You have type 2 diabetes. You're going to have to give up all the bad foods so you can absorb the oral medication, or just start taking some insulin for a while. And then after a couple of weeks or a month or so, and you've given up gluten, you can switch over to the oral stuff. And don't forget the sweeties. And if finances are a problem, just get the Healthy Blood Sugar Pack, which is the Healthy Start Pack and the sweeties. But if you have no financial problems, then you take the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack and the sweeties, and all this is resolvable. Over to you, Rebecca.
Well, Dr. Wallach, so Marilyn has a question real quick here, and she wants to know, if a person stops eating gluten products, does the villi return?
Yes, everything grows back. I'll tell you a great story. There's one guy up in Canada. He was on dialysis 6 days a week. 6 days a week dialysis, okay, for 10 years. Hadn't urinated in 10 years. Okay, and so we put him on the program with everything, okay? We got him on the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. We got him on the Ultimate Daily Classic tablets, and you name it, right? We got him on the sweeties. And in 2 weeks' time, he starts urinating again after 10 years and not urinating. So they dropped his dialysis down to 3 days a week, and in 2 more weeks, everything's perfect. And so they took him off of dialysis. He'd been on dialysis for 25 years. The last 10 years, it was 6 days a week. And then, of course, we reversed it in about 6 weeks, because we got him on a gluten-free diet. We got him on the 90 essential nutrients plus the sweeties, and we slowly reduced his medication. We just didn't cold turkey off him on his medication, but as his blood sugar got better, we slowly reduced his medication. And in 6 weeks' time, everything was perfectly normal. And so, yes, you can get everything going again. And we do this, I'm being conservative, thousands of times a day around the world. This is something we've been doing almost forever, certainly for my lifetime. Okay, we're talking about the book, okay? And this book here, The Wallach Revolution, is a 75-year journey. It covers many of these stories, okay? And then, of course, deeper detail, deeper biochemistry, okay? And it's a summary of the book that's in the Smithsonian Institute, Epigenetics, The Death of the Genetic Theory of Disease Transmission, okay? And the one you don't want to forget about, if you want to know about that transition, Hell's Kitchen talks about the transition, okay, from wood and coal as fuel, where we were using the ashes for our mineral source, and we went to electricity. This story tells the transition, Hell's Kitchen. And then, of course, the big story, which I discovered when I was 9 years old, that only dead doctors don't lie. Oh, and all this, of course, is summarized in the book, The Wallach Revolution. Now, this has been a journey. And it's just the beginning, because I figure that if you're doing everything right, eating right, taking the supplements, there's no reason why everybody here can't live as long as the Hunzas. The Hunzas have the longest life expectancy of any culture on earth. Their life expectancy is 120. Many live to be 130, 140, 150. And it's because they live in valleys that are showered daily by dust, okay, from the volcanoes and ash, and they plow it in every day, and they're getting their minerals, okay, from that volcanic ash every day in their water, okay, their water sources, and also their plants, their crops. And that's why their life expectancy is the longest life expectancy in the world. And we studied so many different cultures when we started longevity. We studied so many different cultures. We actually, for 6 months' time, okay, and wrote the book Immortality. We looked at the cultures that live the longest, what they obviously and very, very proactively avoided in their diet, and what they proactively took in their diet, and why it was that they were living longer than anybody else. It wasn't genetic, okay? And that's why my thesis is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure, because I showed there are no genetically transmitted diseases. Thank you.
I'm going to have to get a copy of that book, but I don't want one that the dog is peed on, Dr. Wallach, so that I can share that one up as well. So
well,
for Christmas,
let's both save
how
a little
about my
bit of money.
birthday?
Let's both save a little bit of money. We can both, we can combine our resources here and we'll buy you one.
Perfect. 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 Well, another question that Marilyn has, Dr. Wallach, that's related to digestion is she wants to know about alkaline bottled water. What is your opinion of it? Is it recommended? And what kind of bottled water would you drink? So thumbs down. I'm going to do triple thumbs down on that alkaline water. And Dr. Wallach is going to tell us why.
Okay, well, alkaline water, as if you know anything about basic chemistry, will neutralize acid. And so you cannot digest food. You cannot absorb minerals without stomach acid. So alkaline water, this is what we want to send to our worst enemies. When you're at war, you can't shoot everybody because they're hiding. So send them alkaline water, okay? Alkaline water will kill you, okay? Because it does neutralize your stomach acid. You need stomach acid. God put that there, okay? This is not something that just sort of accidentally happened and something you can avoid, and don't do that. And of course, again, that's why you need salt, sea salt, seasoned salt, Himalayan salt. And in the beginning, it all started with sea salt. And now this is,
Yeah, move it over so it's not covering your mouth because it muffles your voice and we want to hear. No.
Okay, so anyway, you get the picture. This is something, you get red warning lights. When your blood pressure goes up, that's a red warning light. When your thyroid is acting up, that's a red warning light. And when you have skin problems, that's a red warning light. When you have constipation, it's a red warning light. When you have diarrhea, it's a red warning light. When you have bowel gas, it's a red warning light. When you have high blood pressure, it's a red warning light. When you have high blood sugar, it's a red warning light. What do you do? Do you just go to the doctor and get a drug that's going to lower your blood pressure and your blood sugar without fixing the problem? That's how the medical system works.
So let's not do what some people do in their car and put a sticker over that red warning light on the dashboard, folks. We need to pay attention. That red warning light is really simple to turn off, especially when you catch it early. And Dr. Wallach, we have complicated health so badly, and you don't need to complicate it. You give the body what it needs, and the body will perform. Now, I do want to say that the content of this program is not meant to diagnose, treat, cure any disease. We are not meant to take the place of your primary care physician. But folks, as an empowered individual, you can make choices as to what is going in the mouth. And if everything's working out, you won't be able to tell when it comes out the other end, because the body is digesting, it's absorbing the nutrients that it needs, but our food does not have those nutrients. The food is null and depleted of nutrients, and that's even shared in a Senate bill from what, 1936?
1936, U.S. Senate Document 264.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, well, they knew because when those dams came along with the hydroelectrics, suddenly now all these people are dying. All these animals on the farms are dying, and of course, it was the animal industry that figured it out and got it published. And all these publications went to the Senate, and they said, "Oh my gosh!" And they came out with this document because it's unimpeachable evidence. It was based on millions of animals that died in America from the East Coast to the West Coast, from the northern border to the southern border. Millions died because of these nutritional deficiencies and cost the agricultural industry billions of dollars. So they couldn't, push that one under the rug. They had to deal with it. And they came out with a document, U.S. Senate Document 264, 1936, so that at least the farmers would know that the government guys are on their side.
Yeah. Well, as I'm going through the comments here, Dr. Wallach, Kay says, I love it when he teaches. And then Kim says, amen, amen, has helped me above and beyond, only been in for 7 weeks.
Wow.
And it's true, Dr. Wallach, that when your body starts absorbing and eliminating correctly, which Kim says now, 7 weeks later, she's now finally doing. And I personally know Kim, she's actually a practitioner and is in alternative modalities of the medicine field. And she is loving your system, Dr. Wallach, absolutely loving it. Well, we only have a few minutes left and we do have a couple hands up. So we just want to thank everybody for joining us here on Daily with Doc. This program is sponsored by dailywithdoc.com, which is a collaboration of information that is provided as a resource to the world, Dr. Wallach, to the world. Now, this is brought to you by some independent distributors of the longevity products. And we do this because we love people, because we have actually felt the difference that following Dr. Wallach and his protocols has made in our lives. We want to make sure that many others hear and feel the difference as well. So with that being said, if somebody invited you to this program, make sure that you get back to them if you have questions. If there's nobody to thank, then feel free to utilize that store even on dailywithdoc.com. So we're going to go to Carmen, who has her hand up. Carmen, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm here in the hospital with my mom. I don't know if you can see her. Oh, you've got us closed so you can't see her. But anyway, I'm in the hospital and she was diagnosed with syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone secretion. It means if they give her a diuretic, she gets more fluid in her. And they've got her on, what's the name of that? Samska. And I wanted to know, I told her before when mom was on the vitamins, Dr. Wallach stuff, she didn't have all that stuff. Now that they took her off and we're trying to get her out of this hospital to get her back on the vitamins, I wanted to know which one do we need to give her more of or whatever, okay. Just give her the regular amounts. Okay. She's about 143 pounds and she's supposed to be 5 foot. She might be shorter than that now. And she's 94. She'll be 95 in a couple of weeks.
Oh, good. 94, 95. That's great. That's good. Okay, but I need to clarify exactly what's happening there. You threw a bunch of terms at me I've never heard before. Okay, so that means it's been around a long time and doctors gave it a new name.
Yeah.
So question, Dr. Wallach, is okay, she does have a bag and a feeding tube. What would be the most important things to get through that feeding tube?
Well, they may not let you put anything through the feeding tube in the hospital. So what I would do is the same thing we did for Pastor Mike Freeman. Okay.
put them on put them on minerals on her stomach and her back and her chest.
Okay, and so stop there for a minute. Yeah. We have a CD and a DVD. It's called Praise the Lord and Pass the 90. And Pastor Mike was in a coma for 6 months. He only had days, according to the doctors, to live. And so his wife, okay, and our dear friend up there,
Linda.
Linda Tyler, Linda Tyler, up in Baltimore, Maryland, they rubbed just the liquid plant minerals on his chest and his belly, on his back, between his shoulder blades and his lower back, 2 or 3 times a day. By the 3rd day, he wakes up, shaves, goes back to the church, and he's telling his story on the church TV and radio studio to the world. And thank goodness he recorded it when he was all enthusiastic and everything about it. He was so excited. And you can tell this when you watch this DVD and listen to the CD, Praise the Lord and Pass the 90. If you've ever been in the military, you know what that means. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. Okay. Yeah. And so this is something, just rubbing the plant minerals on her can do great things.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Carmen, and prayers and wishes for your mom. And next we're going to go to Kay. Kay, go ahead and unmute. You're on live with Dr. Wallach.
Hi, Dr. Wallach.
Hi.
I read the book about It's All in Your Head, and I read your cookbook on vacation. A little light reading. I don't even cook. It was very informative. So I'm very thankful for your information, and I'm going to move on to the bigger books soon. I have a brother who just got married a year ago, and they want to have children, but they're in their late 30s. So of course their doctors are kind of funneling them into hormonal treatment and going through the fertility process. They haven't started yet. And so I have sent them some information, but just light information. And I didn't know what specifically to really send them to kind of get them to look over into the natural side of things.
You only have moments here, so let me go ahead and jump in here.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're going to talk about per 100 pounds of body weight. Okay, she needs to have, the 90 essential nutrients. And if finance is an issue, she can take the Healthy Start Pack, and he can take the Healthy Start Pack. 1 per 100 pounds of body weight has 90 essential nutrients in it. Then they also need to get rid of all the bad stuff. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, no brown oats, no buckwheat, no sugar, no carbonated drinks, so they can maximize absorption. Then I would like them both also to take, let's see, he can have the Zera test. He could have 3 of those a day per 100 pounds of body weight. That's going to tell his Sertoli cells, how to make testosterone. Wouldn't hurt also to throw in the I-26, which because 95% of testosterone is cholesterol. And then she can take the Zerafem, okay, take 3 of those a day, but also take the I-26 because 95% of progesterone and estrogen is cholesterol. And then we also want her and him, okay, to make sure they're taking, avoiding the bad stuff. None of the, we already said, none of the bad stuff. And so let's go there. If they have issues like joint problems, well, they need to be taking the MSM. Take 3 of those twice a day per 100 pounds of body weight. Okay. If they
she does have a back injury that she's healing from, so that might help, huh?
Yes, that will help her speed up the healing time. Okay. And so start there. If they have any other issues like blood sugar issues, they need the sweeties. If they have high blood pressure issues, they need the Healthy Blood and Sugar Pack. Okay. They also need the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. Okay. The Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. It's one of those things, the Healthy's, the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack, very important when it comes to the Healthy Start Pack. Okay, there's so many packs, but I
Right.
want them to take that healthy start pack, healthy brain and heart pack, so they can get the blood flowing into their brain, into all their sexual equipment. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, thank you, Kay. And folks, we are at the end of our time here with Dr. Wallach today. There is a question in regards to pets that I have captured, and I will be getting back with that individual with that question on pets, Dr. Wallach. So heads up on that one. I'm gonna have to put your veterinary hat back on, but we just want to thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Daily with Doc. Dr. Wallach, I know you have to get skedaddled and do that whole type thing. So thank you again. We'll talk to you later, Dr. Wallach.
Thank you.
And if I can have my co-hosts on with me, I just want to thank them because I can't do this without them. Marilyn Pizzera, who's been putting stuff in the chat to help communicate information that Dr. Wallach is sharing. And then also Ruth Ellen Sanchez, who she's like learning this whole new skill of being a technical executive production producer. And I just appreciate their willingness to learn new things. And folks, if you're wanting to learn new things and you have a passion for health, a passion for people, we invite you to consider joining us in this community. Get back with the person that shared this program with you. If there's nobody to thank, go to dailywithdoc.com and express your interest there. We have a little form. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can get the information and a personal email with the invitation to this program. Again, that is at dailywithdoc.com. Until next time, bye for now.